Okay, let's try.
We're streaming on Twitch.
We are.
Yes, we are.
Wonderful. Okay, I think. Of course.
Oh, he's laughing. That's a bad sign.
I can't stand it.
We're streaming on YouTube.
I can't stand it. Of the two butt softwares, George, guess which one's not connecting?
The Hot 101, of course.
Oh, no. Flawless.
Oh, the Hot 101's okay?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely perfect.
The GCPR.
Mm-hmm. and the
Did you switch over the servers?
Yes.
Okay.
The password's there.
It's probably
Podcast.com's there. Shoutcast port 10601.
Yeah. It's
600. 10600.
Yeah. 10600 or 10601.
Save. I bet you good money it's that blasted auto DJ.
Oh, I forgot about that. Let me see if I can
It's the
turn it.
freaking auto DJ.
Yeah, let me go turn it off. I have to enable it and then I have to disable it.
I thought it was scheduled to do.
It's supposed to be, but I think it's possessed, has a mind of its own. So.
Well, I think it's something. Be about right. Anyway.
All right, so just
God, Jeremy's got a sense of humor. Oh my God. He's thinking to himself, what the hell kind of people did I connect myself with here?
Yeah, say auto DJ still.
Thank God that you've had to do some of this yourself so that you understand it. It is.
I am completely understanding and sympathetic.
It's absolutely mind-boggling.
I stopped the auto DJ. Try it.
Yes, you did. Okay, let's have at it then. Hopefully I'm not the only one that can hear that.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through? But that's the doggone season that he won't try something new. A man who's old enough to know
and young enough to do.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who brings the job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Because it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy, and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in East Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, for now, North American continent, Western Hemisphere on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for Sunday, August 25, 2024. Just don't tell anybody. I didn't realize I was looking at the wrong camera because the other one's not working anymore. Situation update, folks. We were not with you last Thursday because George, in his infinite patience, and I mean it is pretty damn, it's about as close to infinite as humanly possible. I took this computer that is in front of you now, took it to George. He said, "Bring it here. I'm gonna have a fight with this thing all weekend. We're gonna get this going to where it needed to be." Well, he did, and then I did, and I would say right now, probably at least on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards, we're losing. The computers are winning. I would say at least on 2 of the scorecards, we're losing. So here's the deal. To everybody that's out there right now, watching, listening, and wherever you might be doing so, please tell us what you see and hear. Because even after quite a bit of testing, the reason that we tried to upgrade this computer in the first place does not work. I now look like some sort of traffic cam. It's not really video so much as it is still shots about every 2 or 3 seconds. My hand is here, and then it's over here, and then it's down there. It is quite a thing, needless to say. But we will try to power through. So we're counting on you, respectfully, out there, to tell us what you see and hear. And if it is as bad as I think it might be, this will be a very, very short show. And we will not be back with you until I don't know when. But if it is good enough on your end, or at least you can hear it, and you can live with the fact that I look like I'm jumping all over the place, then we press on. That still doesn't mean that we don't have work to do here. But wow is all I can really say. Is just wow. Just wow. It's been a fight. It's been a fight. I just texted to George, right at the beginning, that never have too people try to do the right thing so many times and gotten nowhere for it. I mean, we just keep losing. It's mind-numbing. And I should not even say me doing anything. George is the one that's been doing it. And I will say, I have to say this, especially for Donna. I have an Irish temper. And my dad was not Irish, but I got an Irish temper on top of me dad's temper. Daisy's got a temper too, if you can hear her barking now. And it's not good. And it's not pretty, and I'm not proud of it, and I'm not trying to highlight it as anything that should be celebrated. But it got me dad's temper. And I have used it through this process. So when I originally suggested to George, I got a better idea. Rather than coming down here, because the computer's here, and us doing another 12-hour day and trying to just be constantly like a red alert fire drill and getting everything done, why don't I bring you the computer, keep it for as long as you need it, you can work in it, you can walk away from it, you could, whatever it is that you need to do. And he said, no, that's a very good idea, because my temper will then come out, and then you don't need to see that either, and the computer doesn't need to see it, and all of these that so. And George, to his own admission, did say there were some temper-ish moments. So all I can tell you is we will try to press forward. We will go as long as we can. Donna mentions on the other end that everything seems to be good right now. Let's hope so. I've done none of my sharing. We were late starting because we were fighting with it right up till the end. And we do have a guest. I swear to God, I'll introduce him at some point. Let's get through the business. The bottom line of this is that the piece of software that we wanted to run to do, which was the reason why we tried to do all of these upgrades in the first place, still won't run. And all we've done is make the computer even worse. Never have two people tried to do so many of the right things for all the right reasons and gotten absolutely bitten in the you-know-what for it. It's a Sunday evening. There's actually curse words that I'll say on a weeknight. It's a Sunday evening. I'll try to keep it even better. I'll try to keep it even cleaner if humanly possible. Let's get to the business and with the program. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 20. I keep looking at the wrong camera, even though they're only inches apart. Hopefully you can't see. Hopefully you folks are. This is why it's a face for radio, folks. Shouldn't be staring at cameras, should I? Actually, should just take the other one off, and I wouldn't have a choice but to not stare at it. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 25th of August, 2024. We will be spending the majority of the program probably just reviewing what happened at the DNC this week. But as you know, with the program, if a certain comment, question, phone call, maybe phone call, takes us in a different direction, you know that we are always happy to do that. So we will do that as the program progresses. We are live right now on my personal Facebook page, Jeff Kennedy. I don't even know, gotta be honest with you, I'm not even sure I know all the places where we are live, to be honest with you. I'm not even sure that I'm aware. We are live on my Facebook page at the moment, I think. Because now I'm looking and I don't see it. Oh, there we are. Isn't that lovely? Okay, I just had to refresh. We're live on my Facebook page right now. Jeff Kennedy, name's right there in the corner of your screen. You can find it and look for us. We are live right now on our Twitch channel, which is Jeff R. Kennedy. Live on our LinkedIn, which is Jeff Kennedy. Live on our YouTube channel, which is called That Other Side of Information. I will do all the Facebook sharing in just a couple of minutes while Jeremy introduces himself and talks to you and buys me time to do all the sharing. And then there's that. We, of course, our audio. So wherever you might be watching, stay right where you are. I'll see your comments, questions. We want you to be part of the program. NPR is wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful service, and it remains a wonderful service of unbiased news and information. But it's also a little lecture-y, and I don't want to be a lecturer. I am not a professor. I'm not a teacher. I didn't go to school to teach, but I'm not a professor. I want to lecture you. This is your program. Interaction is exceptionally important. We want you to be part of the program. You can put your comments, your questions right into the chat. I will see them. I will do my best to keep up with them, especially if the chat, if the comments come in from other places that I do not see on the right side of my screen. I will do my best to keep up with them. The audio of the program, of course, is going out across 2 global internet radio stations. One, of course, being one of the originators and the first global internet radio station to give us a chance, and that is hop101.net. Our name is our web address, hop101.net, but you don't need the web to listen. You can listen through our apps as well. Go to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, the Google Play Store. I have an Apple device, what's left of it, and I have go to the Google Play Store for Android. And if you have any other type of device, like a Kindle or a Fire or a Google phone, which I think actually does use a different operating system, go to the TuneIn radio app. Go to the top, go in the search bar, type in hop101.net, and you will be listening. The wonderful thing about our website and all of our apps are you need nothing to listen. Open it, and it works. You don't have to register. No login, no fingerprint, no retina scan, no blood sample. You're selling blood to stay alive. But I mean, no, you don't have to sign over your house to your firstborn. You need none of it. Download the app, tap it, it opens, and you're listening straight away. Hop101.net. You can listen. You can connect to the internet anywhere below, on, or above Earth. You can listen to us, and you can listen on any type of device, a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a phone. Bluetooth it to speakers, headphones, earbuds, Bluetooth it in the car. Listen while you're in the shower, because we all know we all sing better in the shower. Listen to Hot101.net. We're happy to be part of you. Of course, GCPR Live is with us as well. GCPR.live. Ghost Claw Productions Radio, easy to say, or not so much perhaps. Ghost Claw Productions Radio.live. That is our website. I have put that in the chat already. Go there, check us out, learn about the hosts, the schedule, the other shows. Check us out. And of course, right now, we depend on you immensely. Please feel free to share our program anywhere that you might see it. If you see it on Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you might see it, wherever you might see any Ghost Claw Productions radio shows, wherever you might see Hot 101, share it and share it and share it and share it again. Depending on the different social media that you use, like, subscribe, share, comment, questions, all that. I said subscribe already, didn't I? You know, follow. Follow's the one I was trying to think of. We depend on you, especially in the early days of GCPR, and word of mouth is always the best recommendation. We will try to take your phone calls later in the program. I have no idea how it's going to work, or if it's going to work at all. And if we do, it's probably going to have to be a good old-fashioned way, hold the old phone up to the microphone, which means all three of us will hear you. You will not hear all three of them back. You will only hear me. I guess I'll have to play interpreter, however that goes. But needless to say, I think we'll get through the program. Let's put it that way. 6:22 Eastern Time. Our plan is to go till 9 o'clock, our regular airtime. Coming up at 9 p.m. on GCPR, The Villain's View. Music restarts on Hot 101 from 9 p.m. Eastern as well. Whatever floats your boat. We got choices. Don't we love choices here in America? We do have a guest. Oh my goodness. I think I'm going to go outside and look for snow. We have a guest. You don't have to listen to me drone on for the entirety of the program, only most of it. And that is Jeremy Brasil. Jeremy is the owner, operator, big muckety muck, program director, chief IT officer, chief content officer. How many other things can we say? Of the America One radio network. America One is a progressive talk network based out of Atlanta, Georgia. All of the big hosts are there. Tom Hart, Mike
and we're
Malone,
working on getting you guys on there too.
Sandy, you threw me off. You said Stephanie Miller, all the bit. David Packman, I think, Ian Masters, all the biggies are there. And we'll talk about the thing that Jeremy just said later in the program. I was holding that one. I was saving that for big news. But there is no big news. I guess it's big news. I don't know. We'll talk about it. And by the way, given the fact that the way the technology is working tonight, maybe we should really hold that announcement, because this is just a show. It's some sort of S show. I can tell you that right now. And S not meaning super. I can tell. And I'm still trying to play with this to get everybody's face set. And it's nothing's really going well. So anyway, Jeremy, welcome to the program. How are you?
I am great. Great to be here. And I know we've been trying to connect for a few weeks, and through, as I was mentioning, we relocated our studios, and which is, I make that sound like it's in some big office building somewhere, but like you, it's in my guest bedroom. If you could see behind me, you see the guest bed. But
that's right. That's right. I should. First off, I know I did off air, but I will do it on there. Congratulations on the move. I think a new house. Moving stinks, right? It's just a terrible exercise, but it's also exciting. It's a new place. Everything's a bit new. It's a new, a chance to break from the old, fresh start, all that fun stuff. So, is this the first official broadcast from the new studio?
First live. We've been streaming this station. We run the station pretty much in the cloud, just for so we are constantly on. It eliminates downtime, but occasionally we do throw it back to the studio if we've got a live program that's going on. Just like if when we're doing election night coverage, things like that, we'll be doing from here, or this will kind of be the master control of it. But yeah, this is the first one, and I was telling George as we were getting set up, I realized there were a few things I left unplugged as I was trying to get on tonight. So I'll have to re-examine all
there's
that.
a few things you left unplugged. Did you watch the setup of the show? Did you see what we were going through? Are you kidding? Oh my goodness.
Pictures of everything, so I know exactly how to plug it back in, and I still missed something. So if that tells you anything.
No, something.
I understand.
Yeah, you know, when you run something like this on you know, whenever anybody asks me what's the budget, well, close your eyes, and there it is. There's the budget. So, close your eyes. If you see red, especially, there's the budget. Why is the microphone red? Because I went into debt to buy it. So we're in the negative pretty much on this whole program. But let's get into it. First off, welcome. Are we on America One right now, by the way?
We are streaming on our Facebook page.
We are. Oh, brilliant.
We share the program on our Facebook page, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Let me ask you, what is our traditional opening question for anyone who is new to the program, especially? And welcome to the Kennedy Effect family, by the way. Anybody who's a guest immediately becomes part of the family. And that is, it is a very intentionally open-ended question, because I'm very curious about how people take it and how they answer. Most people tend to either answer with a bit of a mini biography. Some will answer with a personal story. I did have one guest get kind of dumbfounded, drop their jaw, and say, "'Cause you invited me?" I think they lost the meaning of the question, but our traditional opening question is, who is Jeremy Bastille, and how did you get here?
Well, that is a very thought-provoking question. I grew up in a small town in Alabama. Grew up in a very conservative family, very heavy-handed in the church. Kind of grew up and I was a bit of a rebellion, so I went right against everything I was told I should be, and I became something completely different. I've always been a staunch supporter of the Democratic Party, and I've done a lot of activism along the way. Bill Clinton was the first president I was able to vote for, and ironically, I got to meet Hillary Clinton very briefly, just before she ran for president last time, and had the opportunity to share with her that her husband was the first Democrat I'd ever voted for as president. As I kind of have grown up, I've dabbled in radio and broadcasting. I've worked for some of the bigger news organizations, some of the very right-wing stations here in town. But you have to get in the door to be able to keep opening doors. We've different ways of getting progressive talk on the radio here in Atlanta. We've had a couple of opportunities to do some things, but it is very expensive. And as we were doing some research just before the COVID pandemic hit, we were trying to figure out, what forward, because at that time we were trying to beat Donald Trump in 2020. And, I was looking for how we could get the message out there, how we get our voice out there. So the idea of America One came about, and we were set to launch in April of 2020. And then COVID hit, and it kind of put the hold on everything. So we kept moving the launch date back a little bit, and then finally we ended up launching the 1st of June in 2020. When we launched, we had a very, very small schedule. Tom Hartman was on, and Randy Rhodes in a small capacity, and we literally had their programs on loop. So you'd finish one, the other would come on. They just rotated throughout the day. And we've been able to flesh out our schedule quite a bit. Now that we've come on, we've got some traction, and we've been able to attract some of the bigger talk show hosts here. And we've been able to grow with it. I honestly had no idea what to expect from it, but we looked at ways we could get on terrestrial radio in Atlanta, and through all of our research, we realized a lot of our progressive listeners are not somebody's great grandparents are going to sit in front of a scratchy AM radio and listen to audio. And a lot of we're trying to meet our listeners where they are, and they're getting their content from online and social media. And we decided to go the digital route, and it's really paid off with America One. The idea behind it initially, and the reason it was called America One, is we were hoping to add more cities around the country, cities like Atlanta that can't support it on terrestrial radio, but try to find a home in the digital space. And ideally, our location here in Atlanta would be Atlanta One, and then in other cities would be named after the city. So we're still working on that down the road. We have a lot of growth to do to get there. We're really trying to make the most of Atlanta through this election cycle, and then once we get to the other side of the election, we're hoping to do some further growing and expanding the brand. So that's where we're at right now. We're making most of Atlanta, and we're really excited to bring a progressive voice here because who would have thought Atlanta's back in the swing state category again.
Well, Georgia's back in the swing state category, I think, mostly because of Atlanta, because of Fulton County.
I say Atlanta, but you're exactly right. Once you step outside of Atlanta, it starts looking like Alabama. but we do have we have a very high concentration of people here that are very progressive and like-minded.
Atlanta, I think, is the 4th largest city in the country, 5th.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, yes.
New York, Chicago, LA, Atlanta. I thought I had that right. Although I know the populations of Houston and Dallas, for some reason, I'm left. Sorry, Texas, but my God, it continues to grow for some reason. But I don't know what that is. But I did this. George and I did the same thing. And April tried to do the same thing for us when we started, is find us a terrestrial radio home. Mm-hmm. Do you think a terrestrial radio home is still necessary? Is it still? It seems to me that some folks, unfortunately, and I do think sometimes without justification, and I tend to do it myself sometimes, and I shouldn't because I'm doing this, or I'm trying to do this, as tonight was Joe. I'm trying to do it. We can get a little snobbish sometimes about things that are online. There's well over 10 million podcasts on the planet, and I would suspect that about 90-something% of them are just not that great. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of folks trying to do what we're doing, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who think that what I'm trying to do, what I'm doing, isn't all that great either. And by the way, they're welcome to think that. This is America, but there is a legitimacy that I think, if that's the right word, and I might very well have the wrong word, but there's a legitimacy to terrestrial radio, but I don't know that terrestrial radio is entirely necessary anymore. But any thoughts in that realm?
I think that it has a place, and I think it will have a place for quite some time. But I don't think the relevancy of it today is what it was 10 years ago. When we started out, when I first got involved in doing this, I was really trying to bring Air America to Atlanta back in the mid 2000s, around 2004, 2005. We were really trying to get an Air America affiliate here, which we did briefly, not under our leadership, but under a company that had bought a signal, and they were just trying to put a format on there as a placeholder until they sold the station, and then it ended up flipping, which it did. But we were really trying to figure out what was going on. And somebody told me way back then, man, you should leave this scratchy AM radio stuff alone. Your listener's not there. You really need to get into some digital space. And had I listened to that person then, I think we would have, we might have even gone ahead of somebody like Progressive Voices or one of the other progressive networks. But at the time, we stayed the course, ended up doing some other local, non-political type programming, which, we bought a small AM radio station with an FM translator out in West Georgia. and did really well. It was one of the only stations there, and you know, we had funeral announcements and, you know, church announcements and you name it. You know, somebody's cow gave birth, we announced it, and tuned in for that. I mean, we had advertisers that would line up for that. So I definitely think there's still relevance to it, but I think that I'd say the next generation, it's going to continue to lose its relevancy. I would say a couple of generations down the road, it's going to be something that's very costly to run and operate as a, you know, a broadcaster, and I think that's not where our listeners are going to be. So I think it's fine now, but I don't know that the future is going to always be right for it.
We should remember as well a little bit of the story behind Air America, folks. If you don't remember Air America, some of the largest progressive voices, no pun intended, to the Tune In Progressive Voices channel, but some of the most notable progressive voices that remain today came from Air America. Rachel Maddow came from Air America. It was her first. It was not her first radio gig, but it was her first certainly national radio gig, and she hosted a show with Chuck D. It was that, you know, Tom Hartman was established before Air America, but came from it. Al Franken came from Air America. I don't think he would have won a Senate seat without it. Randy Rhoads came from there. Stephanie Miller came from there. Amy Goodman. Bill Prest used to do mornings, but Mike Malloy was there. All the remaining big names in progressive radio talk came from Air America. Air America was winning, folks. It was winning. It was getting ratings higher or consistently better than, and not in every market, to be fair, not in every market, but in many of the markets where it was winning the ratings war. But as an overall expenditure, Air America was losing money, and it needed fresh investment, and it went out and it sought investors. Well, they found one. That investor actually did pour in, bought a good chunk of it, became the controlling owner, and it just so happened to be a right-wing hedge fund manager, and he closed it. So for those of you who might think that radio has no relevance, regardless of where it's based from, terrestrial or otherwise, it does. Because if Air America was such a failure, as the right wing would have you believe, that it was a commercial and ratings failure, it was anything but. It was anything but. But like any small business, and I do mean small business because it was run, Tom Hartman and Randy Rhoads will still tell you the stories occasionally about what a shoestring budget they ran on. That, like any small business, you have to be prepared to lose money, sometimes multiple years until you turn a profit. Well, Air America is, I think, chiefly responsible for Democrats regaining the House of Representatives in 2006. The last 2 years of the George W. Bush administration, I think Air America was chiefly responsible for that. And its hosts and its message and its purpose have continued to survive long after its passing, if that's the right word for it, long after its passing. Jeremy, I want to ask you about the whole idea of radio itself as a medium with which to talk to and connect with folks. I do think it's somewhat interesting to me how talk radio, especially political talk radio, regardless, I think, of what side of the aisle you're coming from, radio still has that very personal connection. Turn it on in the car, you listen in the background, maybe while you're doing chores in the morning or getting yourself ready for work, and there's a sense that the person on the other end is talking to you. Even if you're talking to large groups of people, there's that feeling that they're talking to you. There's that sense of connection that I think television doesn't necessarily give you. Although I do happen to think Ali Velshi has an amazing ability to make it seem like he's striking the camera at you and talking to you, the most natural man on television I think by a long way. But that said, there are still 1,500 plus right-wing hate radio stations in this country, with another 500 plus Spanish language right-wing hate radio. So how important in your mind, I mean, obviously you think it's important, you started this yourself, but how important is radio, and how important does radio continue to be in the political landscape of this country?
I think in the political landscape, it's huge. And I even think in just our personal everyday lives, I still think radio plays a big part in that. Like I mentioned, our terrestrial station that we owned, it was in a very small rural community. We had people that got up every day to listen to their funeral announcements, who's died in the community. They got a lot of their political insight from there, whether it was good or bad. But that's how they learned their candidates. That's how they found out about their candidates. When the school board had a meeting that we covered, and people really tuned in great detail for it. Our Friday night football games was probably the highest rated thing that we broadcast for. And we would have advertisers that would tell us, I'm not going to advertise, but when football season rolls around, come and see me. And they spend a ton of money to help get the, help get the coverage of their school and their teams and what was going on there out there. So I think the relevancy and the way it plays in our personal lives, I think is huge. I think just as Fox News has done on the cable news side of things, I think that we've taken it to one end or the other. I wouldn't have a problem going on before a program and saying, hey, this program contains the views and opinions of the broadcaster and not necessarily those of the station, or this is an opinion program. Check your facts before considering it news. And I would not have a problem doing that, but unfortunately, it's gotten in the hands of people that take advantage of manipulating people and putting false information out. That being said, I think the way forward is, rather than reaching out and grabbing large audiences, I think we're going to be able to speak to a more personal group of people, just like with America One. If I go out to advertisers and try to pitch the station looking for advertisers for the station, and I tell them how many people we're reaching every day, they're looking at me like, well, why would I spend my money with you where I can get, thousands of dollars for reaching a much larger community on terrestrial radio? But what they don't realize is the community that we reach. I have listeners that will tune in and stay tuned in for hours on end. I have people that turn us on in the background at work, and they listen all day long. So my average listening time, per listener may be 2 or 3 hours. You don't get that in terrestrial radio. You might get somebody that's listening online at work, but they're listening online. You might get somebody that's listening in the car if they have a 20 or 30 minute commute. But our listeners tune in and they stay, and they typically come back and they come back. So I think that online broadcasting will eventually start not trying to go after that giant audience that we used to try to get in terrestrial radio. I think we'll try to get we're able to dial in to specific people that are listening to what we have to say. We're also able to reach out and try to, put our views or, direct our views to people that may think differently than us. But I think we're able to make that more of a niche versus trying to reach the masses. And I think that may be the way forward, because everybody's not listening to the same thing. And to be quite honest, especially with talk radio, there's so much negativity out there. People look for something, a different opinion or something that has a positive undertone. And I think people have really searched and are seeking us out to be something alternative. And again, I think a smaller way to broadcast like this is going to be the way forward.
Tom Hartman still to this day will tell the story, which is where I got it from. It's sure as hell I wasn't there, that's for sure. I wasn't even doing this then. of when Bernie Sanders brought he and a number of the Air America hosts to Capitol Hill.
Mhm.
And they went to various Senate offices and House offices, especially leadership, and the party office, the central party office in DC, the DNC headquarters, and tried to make the case. Well, they did make the case, at least in my opinion. I think this is rather obvious. This country wasn't as right wing as it was until Limbaugh hit the air. But that said, and the end of the fairness doctrine, which we'll get to. But that said, made the case that the Democratic Party and groups affiliated with it on the left needed to spend the money and do the things that the right wing had done for what would have been about 15 or 20 years prior, needed to do the same thing on the left. And that was mass amounts of investment in terrestrial radio. And that we had to counter program a message, that you had these thousands. Well, 2006 it would have been around then. It still would have been about 1,200, I think, right-wing hate radio stations in Spanish language, which was just getting born, and it wasn't to the depth that it is now. But you had well over 1,000 stations programming nothing but right-wing hate,
Mhm.
and that needed to be counter-programmed. And that there were large swaths of the country where the only talk radio you could hear was right wing. And it's still that way.
Yes.
How important from a messaging or a balance even standpoint do you think that counter programming is? Or the importance of what you do, or what George and I try to do, depending on how much we're fighting with the computer at that point, or what GCPR is trying to do, or what Hot 101 has allowed us to do by giving us a chance on a music station. How important is that balance, or how bad does that balance need to be worked on, built? Maybe I'm groping for a word here, but
I think it's sad because you have a lot of money coming into I know Randy Rhodes has mentioned the story several times after she ended up going to work for Premier Radio, which is the media outlet that shared Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. They did their syndication. And she ended up on there, and she was there for a short amount of time and ended up leaving because they were telling her what she could air and what she couldn't. And she didn't feel that it was fair when they would tell her, you can't talk about this, you can't say that. But the other side wasn't getting the same message, so they were able to talk about what they wanted to. And that's really what drove her to go out on her own and start literally what she did. I'm sure she had some political backing there somewhere from the progressive side, but a lot of what she did, she got started from a grassroots effort, and a lot of her listeners helped fund building her own operation on her own, where she didn't have to work for corporate media. But I think that I've never been opposed to the fairness doctrine. I know that goes back and forth, and especially in the broadcast world, people teeter on it as to whether or not we should have it or whether it should not exist. I believe in free speech, and I'm a huge supporter of it. I don't want anybody telling me what I can and can't air on my radio station, because I believe I share a product or a message that there's a huge hole in the community for. But I think that I think there needs to be, in terms of the Democratic Party, I think we have to get behind the messaging. I think as a whole, the Democrats have had a problem in their messaging. I go back to defund the police and some of the different messages that we've missed the boat on, and we never got back around to following up on it the right way to make sure our message was understood. And I think that we have to figure out where our listener is and make sure that we are balancing the noise that's out there. Again, I don't think our listener is probably listening to that scratchy AM radio station, but our listeners are out there listening. And I think that we have to figure out where we need to spend that money to balance out the message. Do we go neck and neck with some of the terrestrial stations to try to get the word out there? I know here in Atlanta that the closest thing to any type of progressive talk we have is NPR. And we other than that, there's not even any sign of balance. We have right-wing media coming at you left and right, and even some of our fringe signals are picking up whatever's left that the other stations are not carrying. So I think it's hugely important that we figure out as Democrats. I think as we figure out how to spend the money on balancing our message. But I think that I don't know that. I guess I kind of teeter back and forth on the fairness part of it, because I know if you tell me that I'm going,
the fairness doctrine did not prohibit
right, yeah,
political talk. It did not prohibit opinion-based radio. What it did do is that if a station owner was to make, and this used to be a regular part of news broadcasts, is that the station owner might do a commentary at the end of every day, and that commentary might be anything from, don't widen this road, it'll ruin a neighborhood, all the way from close the borders.
Yeah.
And that if station management, television or radio, did such a thing, that it must be given, that the other side of the issue must be given the exact same amount of time and be given it for free. It also built that wall between the entertainment and I'm talking with my hands on my screen, so nobody sees what my hands are doing. I don't know why I'm doing this, but habit. It built that wall between the entertainment and the news. That news was a lost leader for television stations and radio stations. That the sales department couldn't have anything to do with what was programmed on the news to prevent any sort of appearance of bias. It didn't prevent political talk, but I do think we lost something with the removal of that. I know that there's a very wide perception out there that the fairness, that folks, to all of you out there, that the fairness doctrine would somehow shut down Fox News, and somehow the Hannitys and Glenn Becks and especially Ben Shapiro, that bothers me. But that said, would just be suddenly removed from the air. That's not how it would work. It is not how it would work. What it would mean is that if a station manager, and I think this really comes into effect with the Sinclair stations, that when Boris Epstein comes out and gives a commentary, it would have to be counter-programmed. The station would have to allow it. It would also stop this corporate sort of news package pieces that are put together by Sinclair and then syndicated through the country, throughout their stations. Would stop this kind of thing. It would not stop political talk. Andy would still be on the air. As long as he's making money, he's going to be on the air. Beck would still be there. Prager would still be there. All the vultures would still be there. But I do think we lost something. And let's remember, by the way, that the fairness doctrine is not law anymore. It is actually still the law. It is simply unenforced, completely unenforced. And that started with, as it will say on my gravestone, it all started with Reagan. And it started with Reagan. He stopped enforcing it, the same way he stopped enforcing the Antitrust Act. I had some people on the Facebook group, and thank you for being engaged with the Facebook group. I'm holding up my phone. It's not even on. My square is so skinny, I can't see what's on and on. We posted about the terrible consolidation of the airline industry that's actually started under President Carter. That these are antitrust things. We just simply don't enforce the Antitrust Act anymore. Although the government is suing Google to have it broken up. But that said, it seems to me that, look, I'm a Thom Hartmann fanboy. I'm an acolyte. I remember him at the end of different shows saying, if you're not hearing the message, do what you can to get it out. And here we are. And so we're reaching somebody. Tag you're it, right? The old saying, tag it, democracy. Bernie's, democracy is not a spectator sport. Tag you're it. Go do something. And it came out of the convention this week. If we don't counterbalance this, I don't know where we end up. You have an entire right-wing broadcast sphere still telling you that January 6th was a tourist event. On Earth 2, those were tourists. But back here on Earth Prime, it was an insurrection. It would seem to me, and I can't imagine that you would have gotten all into this if you didn't think that it was important for a different voice to be heard.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that the message our message has to be able to be heard as well. And I think that it's so crucial is you look at red states again, like Alabama, where I'm from. I was home last weekend visiting my family, and I sat and had a conversation with a family member who said, "How can you not see President Trump as for all the good that he did for us?" And I'm literally, I'm like, what the hell? And but what they're sitting there listening to Fox News 24/7, and everything that they were spouting off to me was exactly what the people that they've heard on the news commentators have told them, and they could roll it off verbatim, point by point. And I really think that we have to focus on getting a balanced message out there. I definitely, it is very discouraging when you hear, situations like this, because again, there's a whole population that doesn't even know that there's an MSNBC out there. They only are focused on Fox News and what they get there. They are unaware. They've been told that NPR or any of the other news outlets out there, they've been told it's fake news, and they believe that. So I've challenged tons of people, in my time to, have you just thought about listening to just ABC News or NBC News?
I try to point people toward foreign sources.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sources that do not really have a stake in what happens here. Bias reporting from the BBC is outlawed by British law. BBC must be unbiased. It's government funded. I point people toward the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, NHK from Japan, and here's where right wingers really lose their poop. Al Jazeera.
Yes.
These are.
I knew you were about to say that, and that gets under their skin so heavily.
But these are largely, these are organizations that don't have a stake in what happens here. If you don't trust any domestic media, which I think, of course, is silly on its face, but if you don't trust any domestic media, then fine, go get foreign media, and you'll find that a lot of what you see, the Guardian, especially, before it became a pay site. God, did I love the Guardian? I can't really get much out of it anymore. Although I do tend to point people toward the Associated Press app. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful app. It is free. It's exceptionally easy to use and easy to read. But if you don't trust the domestic coverage, then go find the foreign coverage. It's an internet era. It's not that hard to find. Is that something that you agree with, don't agree with? You want them to come to America One. I want them to come to my show on 101. I want them to come to GCPR. But if you're not coming there, the BBC is right there. It's pretty easy. It's 3 letters.
Absolutely. I even, as I've reported news in the past, I always tell people, don't just take what I do my best to give you as accurate information as I can. But I'm a big proponent of saying, hey, dig a little deeper and make sure I'm giving you, make sure what I'm giving you is right before you, before you buy the farm based on it. I think it's important as media as the media as we're getting information out there, especially in the selection cycle, that we are even for us, encouraging people to go out and check your sources to verify the information that's coming at you. We try to, we post a lot of memes and a lot of fun, whimsical stuff on our social media. But I do try to verify the validity of some of the stuff that we're putting out there, because I'll see some things like that's hilarious, but then I fact check it and it's completely wrong, and we make sure that we're not posting that. I think it's just too easy for people to put information out there because it's entertaining without looking at the repercussions of the message that they're sending.
Folks, let's remember too, in a near, well, what was originally started out as $1.5 billion lawsuit during the discovery phase, where I'm blanking on the voting machine company now, Dominion, sued Fox News for nearly destroying its business by claiming that Dominion was rigging the 2020 election. Under oath, under subpoena, and under oath, under the threat of perjury. Countless Fox hosts, including Hannity, and then Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, among others, as well as Lachlan Murdoch, who seems to be the heir to the empire, and Rupert himself, who is, I think, being kept alive in a Lazarus pit, and I believe is 137 years old, but I'm not certain. That could be 136. He's only been married 9 times. Family values for all of you. That said, they all admitted under oath that Fox News is not a news channel. It is not an information channel. It is an entertainment channel. And this part I'm quoting from the transcripts of the testimony, we lie for a living because it's entertainment. Entertainment, you're allowed to lie for entertainment. Joe Azuzu, those old commercials, I'm really dating myself, they were funny because they were entertaining, where he lied about everything. That's Fox. And that's under oath, because they were all too scared shitless to actually to risk being jailed for perjury. They were too damn afraid of it. So they told the truth, which is what you're supposed to do anyway, by the way, in a court situation. They did tell the truth. And the truth is, we lie for a living. We lie for viewers, we lie for eyeballs, we lie for advertisers, we lie for clicks. We are not a news organization. And then they took it a step further and said that anyone who considers us a news organization or takes everything that we say on a factual basis, well, that's kind of really on them. In other words, you fools. It's not our fault the 10,000 people stormed the Capitol and that we helped them and told them to do it. It's really their fault for listening to us. Just remember that. You always keep that in mind. Under oath, under the threat of perjury, we lie for a living. 7:04 Eastern Time, we have entered the second hour of the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 25th of August, 2024. As jumpy as we are, it makes me almost look like I have rhythm when I do that. George, also, by the way, that it looks like something must be going right because it actually looks like I have color in my face. True. Not sure why that's happening. I am on the lower definition camera. Please remember the old rule. The more you drink, the better I look. The lower the definition camera, the better I look. And I did drive around with the Jeep top down this weekend. It might actually be sunburn. I'm not sure. There is no natural color. Wait, I can't do that. Oh, damn camera. There is no natural color, folks. Remember, if the light hits me the right way, I am translucent. I will disappear. So we'll stick with you as long as we can. Our airtime is right up until 9 p.m. Remember now on hot101.net, following us at 9, the music resumes, which you would need to kind of cleanse your soul after 3 hours of this. And following us on GCPR, The Villain's View, hosted by, of course, my partner, Thomas McCormick. And we are actually live right now on the America One Facebook page. So to everybody who doesn't recognize this mess on America One, welcome, welcome, welcome. And thanks for giving us a try. We appreciate it very much. We couldn't do it without you. We are live right now on my personal Facebook, Jeff Kennedy. We have shared the program to 123 other places before the Facebook gods stopped us yet again. I will try to get to the rest of the list at some point. I think I have to wait at least an hour. So somewhere around the bottom of the hour, I will try to get the rest of that out. Come on over to my personal Facebook and or our home group Facebook page for all things that surround the Kennedy Effect and TKE tonight. That is That Other Side of Information. That is our home group Facebook page. Come there, check us out. Remember, when we're not on the air, pretty much the best place to keep up with everything that we're doing. Articles that we post, opinions, sometimes those funny memes that Jeremy was talking about, some of them are just too damn classic to skip. We share those over there as well. News from The Guardian, the Associated Press, the BBC, the CBC, and others. Occasional Axios here and there, CBS News, the occasional from other places. Washington Post, I think you get like one free article per millennia, and then I think you're cut off from there, but we've used them even a couple times as well. And I think the New York Times is kind of right behind them, to be honest with you. But that said, check us out. Our Facebook group is always up and running. You can always check us out. We are also live on our YouTube channel, which is also called That Other Side of Information. If you ever miss any part of our program, or you ever miss any of our programs, period, still think the best place to send you is That Other Side of Information on YouTube. It's all there. It's all recorded. Easiest place to catch up with us. Catch up on especially the Sunday program, a 3-hour program. You can watch it in small bits. If you miss our evening program because you were too tired, went to bed, out of work the next day, it's usually what I have to do. Check it out right there, youtube.com/That Other Side of Information. We are live on our Twitch channel right now, which is Jeff R. Kennedy. We are live on our LinkedIn, which is Jeff Kennedy, and I think that's everything. We are live on Facebook at the TCP Media Group, on the Hot101.net Facebook page, and the Ghost Claw Productions Facebook page as well. We are live on the radio on 2 global internet radio stations, one originator and one brand new. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. You can listen to us anywhere below, on, or above Earth as long as you can connect to the internet. Hot101.net. You don't need the website to do it. You can use our Apple app for Apple devices, Google Play for Android devices, and the TuneIn radio app. And of course, I forgot to tell you to play America's favorite game show, because I'm a very immature little child. I did this once, and I can't believe I haven't done it again. You can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. I tripped someone's Alexa, and I still think it's one of the most entertaining things I've ever done on this show, because I'm a little boy, and I think it's funny. It's very simple. I just think it's funny. So you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. We are live right now on GCPR, Ghost Claw Productions Radio. GCPR.live is our website. App is on its way. We are broadcast around the world through a website called Voscast, VOSCAST. You can go there and look for us as well. You can go to our website, GCPR.live, and find us there. You will also find a roster of our shows and hosts and synopses of all the different programming that we have there. And I think I got everybody. I think that's everybody. I think I got it. We'll try phone calls later in the program. Somebody did call into me, but I think it was a scam call because I hung up on it. It didn't come through the normal phone number, so I kind of skipped right past that. But we may try phone calls later. Again, let me just warn you all, if we are able to take phone calls at all, which I honestly don't know, it's going to be the good old-fashioned way, up against the microphone. Jeremy and George will hear you. You will not hear them unless you somehow just give me your question and hang up and listen in the background. There is a delay. If you try to listen to both, it'll be impossible. If you would like to comment, ask questions, of Jeremy, myself, or George, especially George. He's been dominating the broadcast so far with his everything he's been saying. He's been completely dominating the broadcast. If you want to hear more from him, honestly, in all sincerity, your comments and questions, put them in the chat. They help drive the program. If there's something that you wanted us to comment on, put it in there. You got a question, put it in there. Agree with what we're saying, put it in there. Hate me, hate everything I'm saying, disagree with everything, put that in there too. It's not about telling you what to think, it's about asking you to think. So we've entered our second hour. We'll be with you right up until 9 p.m. Our guest is Jeremy Brasil, the owner, operator, king, guru, chief IT officer, home office, rents his own second bedroom to himself for his station. That's a hell of a moneymaker for him. It goes out one end and back in the other.
That's right.
For America One, the America One radio network, a progressive and online internet-based progressive radio station where all the big hosts are way, way bigger than I can tell you that. I'm not a twinkle in any of their eyes, I can tell you that. The America One, you should check out America One as well. Listen, I'm the partner in GCPR with Thomas, right? I am proud to be a part of the Hot101.net family. Our show would not be on the air if it was not for them. They gave us a chance first. There's plenty of hours in a day and a week to check out all three, and we hope that you will. Spend some time with Hot 101 when you need music. Spend some time with GCPR when you need some talk. There's time for America One as well. There's plenty of time, plenty of hours in a day. Spread your listening around, and a little variety, keeps it fresh anyways. And by the way, you can catch us in all three places. Wow, what a thing. I've been joked with Jeremy before that when we first started talking to each other, Tom Hartman, Randy Rhodes, Stephanie Miller, Ian Masters, Mike Malloy, Jeff Kennedy. Anybody familiar with the old Sesame Street thing? One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not like the other. Jeremy, let's have a look back, shall we? There was a small convention that happened last week in Chicago. I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about it. I think in the same kind of theme, in the same vein as the left getting out its message and counter-programming and trying to go to where the people are, which is radio. Mm-hmm. I think the Democratic Convention did that actually quite well. We mentioned on our weeknight program on GCPR that one of the real revelations I think that came out of this convention were Democrats reclaiming words and feelings and sentiment like freedom, patriotism, love and care and respect for our veterans, for our seniors. The flag is not owned by the right, that we are actually the party of fiscal responsibility. We're certainly the only functioning political party left. Mm-hmm. We're certainly the only ones that are interested in governance and governing and solving the issues and policy challenges that we have today in this country. I think that's the very, very, very overriding theme of the convention is that, you know what? We're pretty darn proud of who we are. And we don't owe anybody any damn apologies for being the party of freedom and and all the other things that I mentioned. What did you take away from the week, generally speaking? We can get into each individual speaker and the zingers and all that fun stuff and the sheer joy and party that was the roll call of states. But what was your sort of overarching takeaway from the convention this past week?
Well, I will be completely honest. I was a bit blown away that everything just rolled as smoothly as it did. I mean, that was a mass undertaking to, switch gears 3 weeks ago, and we're in a completely going in a completely different direction, and they were able to be on top of that. And I think, with the exception of a couple of the speakers running a little long and getting a little bit off timing, I was really blown away at how well it all went off. It just went off very well. And I think that goes back to what you were mentioning about the Democrats are kind of coming together now and really showing that unity. And I don't think they could have pulled off the production that they did last week had they not had that level of unity. In terms of the overall feeling, I think it was a great way to differ themselves from the message that you're hearing on the right, because I listened to Donald Trump's speech. I listened to a lot of what JD Vance is outing, and I literally want to hate myself when I'm done with watching that. And I want that time back in my life, and I know it's gone, and I'm never going to get it back. But I feel like we, as Democrats, we came together, and even though there are disagreements, even within our own party, I think we came together on the messaging to deliver that, we are for the people. Republicans talk about, not allowing the government to take away your freedoms, but they're doing a great job in highlighting how they're taking away your freedoms, and how the Democrats are there to stand up for your freedoms and let you be who you want to be, without judgment or without any restrictions, legally, within the legal realm. But I think that they did a great job with the messaging. I think that by the time I got to the end of it and I was watching Kamala's speech, that was somebody I looked at it, and I'll be honest with you, I was kind of on the fence when Joe Biden backed out of the race. As we were leading up to him making the decision to back out, I guess in my mind I'm thinking, like, gosh, are we so far into this that if we make it, he backs out, are we ever going to be able to get the momentum we need to beat Trump in November? Theoretically, Trump should be a non-issue, but I mean, he was surging in the polls for quite a while, and I was concerned that we would not be able to get the momentum we needed going into this. And to be honest, I just didn't know where Kamala was going to land up. If she ended up being our nominee, didn't know what the support around her would be, and I had a lot of questions about that. But at the end of that convention, I'm very proud to say I think we made the right choice. I think Joe Biden deciding to step aside and let somebody younger take the reins, let somebody fresh and new. I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to, feature women as having the ability to do a very good job in leading the country. That we're willing to take a chance. We've always had old white men in the office, with the exception of President Obama. Let's let a woman in there and show us what she can do. And I felt like the messaging just kind of resonated at that point, that we are on the right path, and we're getting it right.
There's so many different ways I could go there. One of the things we talked about last week is that nations that are run by women are, period, factual. This is not opinion. It just is what it is.
Yes.
These nations, such as the Scandinavian countries, New Zealand, which held its COVID deaths, I think, under 100, if I'm not mistaken. Germany, for so many years with Angela Merkel. Countries that are run by women are among the list that I will. They're happier, they're healthier, wages are higher, business is better, the economies are better, the environment is more protected, the citizenry is more and better educated, they are healthier, they live longer, they are more peaceful. These are just facts, and yet here we are, as we're supposed to be the leading democracy on earth. We're just only for the second time do we have a woman as a nominee, let alone, I think, I'm feeling more confident all the time, standing on the precipice of having the first woman running the country. Did you get the sense from the convention that that very simple fact, that very obvious fact, is kind of just setting in that, wow, we're this close. We're this close to real, as Secretary Clinton said, finally we cracked the hell out of that glass ceiling, but we didn't break it quite yet. We're this close to actually breaking it.
You know, it's interesting. As we were going through the 2016 election cycle, and Hillary Clinton was our nominee, it was really interesting at how many times I heard people say, "I just don't know if the country's ready for a woman to be the president." That so many times. Of course, I live in the South, and you know, we still deal with a lot of Southern men that think a woman's place is only in the kitchen. But I heard that over and over, and I feel like I'm coming to this point now where it's not as big an issue as it was before. I think that we are warming up to it, and I hate to say that, as that just sounds so belittling, but I think we are at least where we're warming up to having a woman president. And I think it's becoming less of an issue. I don't think it's gone away just yet, but I think it has become a little bit of a lesser issue. And to Hillary's point that she made in that statement, that they cracked the hell out of that glass ceiling, but we just didn't quite break through. I think that there's a segment of our population that are kind of where, look, we've dealt with Donald Trump. He just won't go away. What do we have? You know, those naysayers, I think they are kind of starting to think, what do we have to lose? You know, we can't go back to where we were at. We're not going to go back to where we were at. Maybe if we roll the dice and take a chance, this might really be what we need to fix things. And I've heard more people seem to have that sentiment than you know, maybe you've had in a long time. So
There is a is there any way to put your finger on or put the right words on? I think a lot of pundits and folks in our position, you know, radio hosts and so on, have really tried to put into words this sense, the refreshment of it, the change, the real, just the lightening of the air, the optimism that has come with Vice President Harris becoming the nominee and President Biden stepping back is, and yet at the same time, like, you can feel it, it's tangible. As I just put in the chat, that I think it was just yesterday that the Harris campaign reported it has raised $540 million in just the 5-ish weeks or so that she has been the nominee since President Biden stepped back. And the hundreds of thousands of volunteers across the country. They were talking about 70,000 new volunteers in Georgia alone. 70,000, not 7,000, not 700, not 70,000 new volunteers just in Georgia. I mean, is there any? It's kind of hard to kind of put into words this new enthusiasm and the sort of, especially without trying to sound, you know, very, very poorly against President Biden, who I think has solidified his place in history. He's certainly one of the most accomplished presidents in history, period, let alone one-term president. But without trying to denigrate him in any way as something stale, but there is a bit of a fresh air kind of blowing through the place now with Vice President Harris. Have you had the same kind of trouble, or how do you sort of try to verbalize that new sense of fill in the blank that she brings, that has brought and is bringing?
I think that the Harris campaign has done a great job in transitioning from Biden to Harris. I think that the way they've handled the transition has been very instrumental, and I think it's been very important that Harris has spoken so highly of her time with President Biden. She's had nothing bad to say about him. She tries to keep things very neutral, and she's tried to incorporate the things that they did together as a team, or that the Biden Harris team did. She's incorporated that into what she's doing, but she is setting herself out. She's not trying to just build on that. She's really trying to set herself forward. And I think the thing that I'm hearing the most that's resonating with people is that she is not just an old white man sitting there ready to take the reins. She is this young, energetic, very bright, brilliant woman that is ready to take over and lead. She's not waiting on anybody to catch up with her. She's been given the baton and she's running with it. She's kind of led the message that we're moving forward, we're not going back. So either get on the wagon or get off, but we're moving with this. But she's been able to keep that message while being very positive about the things that President Biden has done. And to be quite honest, I think she's done a great job in pointing out the differences between her leadership and the leadership of Donald Trump. I think she's done a great job in playing the card of she will walk the ledge of throwing him under the bus, but I think she's doing it with dignity and tact. And she's allowing him to throw himself under the bus in terms of his reactions. And I think it's brilliant. I think the way she's handling it is absolutely brilliant because it's digging into Donald Trump's skin so badly that he just continues to dig himself deeper into his grave. But I think overall that's where I would say the message and the sentiment that I'm hearing out there is that the level of positivity that she's giving off, and I think the way she's handled this transition has really set things up for success in the future. And I think it has made it very easy for the Trump supporters. For the Biden supporters that might not necessarily get behind her. I think she's made it very easy for them to join forces with her. And I think she has made it very easy for a whole new generation of younger folks that were not at all excited about this coming election, people that the Democrats needed that were not excited about this election cycle. I think she's been able to grab them by the arm and pull them along, and I think it's worked out very well. Overall, I think it's been very positive.
If I could just step back, I probably should have asked this question first. Is there any way to properly encapsulate and verbalize the massive difference, canyon-wide, the hell with that, solar system-wide difference between President Biden, who voluntarily gave up power, and let's remember, the man is not dead. I do think I think in this transition we almost got into like a eulogizing sort of stretch. The man has not passed away; he's alive and he's still president, and will be until January 20th, one way or another, regardless of who wins or doesn't. But to voluntarily step back from power, compared to 4 years ago, when someone else was willing to literally end the American experiment in order to keep it. And I suspect if he was willing to end the American experiment, he's not exactly looking to continue it should he regain power. Is there that level of difference, of opposites? Opposite almost seems to me to be an inferior word. It doesn't even seem to really encapsulate all of it. The vast difference. Voluntarily giving up power as opposed to shredding the Constitution to keep it.
I think that his choice to step aside, and going back when he ran for president in 2016, I think the nation needed a steady hand. I think that the nation needed somebody that appeared level-headed. They needed somebody with experience. Donald Trump was a loose cannon. He reminds me of, I hate to call them rednecks, but I grew up in Alabama, and I have rednecks in my family. They walk out into an open field with a gun and just start firing it, just because they can. And that's really, what I felt like Donald Trump is like a bull in a china shop, I guess is the best way to say that. And, President Biden came in and was that steady hand that we needed to get through this pandemic, to get, the nation back on its feet, to get people centered and believing again, because they so many things that they didn't know what they could believe and what they couldn't. I think President Biden was the right person at that right time. Now, I'll be honest, when this election cycle came around, I would love to have seen somebody else throw their name in the hat, way back when. But it didn't happen that way. It played out the way it did. I would love to have seen President Biden say, you know what, I did my 4 years and I'm good. Unfortunately, it took what we went through to get there. But I do think it has allowed us to see what somebody with the experience and what somebody with the level-headedness can do. And I think it helps us appreciate that versus the bull in the china shop that Donald Trump was. And I think even more so for Kamala to come in here and, just a brilliant person who handles herself with dignity and tact. And when I think it's going to be a very interesting thing to see them on a stage, because she's going to be able to keep herself poised and on message. And I think everything she says is going to throw him in it's going to throw him off track. So going back to, what you're asking, I guess, between, in the unhingedness of Donald Trump versus, having somebody like President Biden and then him making a decision to step back. I think that it clearly shows that cross section where Donald Trump is in it for himself and Joe Biden is in it for his country. And I think if nothing else has ever made that clear to me, that was the one thing, that selfless thing that he did. I know that probably wasn't very easy for him. He's probably still kicking himself every night thinking, gosh, what did I give up? But I think it draws a very clear contrast of the two different types of people that we're dealing with here. And I think that just sets the table for Kamala in her run.
Randall in the chat says, because I told you I would read your comments, and now I'm going to. Take that. I told you I would do it. I've done it. Harris is definitely setting herself apart from Biden on two issues. One, on the issue of women's right to choice, because Biden had to tiptoe between the issue and his Catholic faith. I didn't see that, Randall. Got to be honest with you. Said he would sign a law to codify Roe. I didn't see that. Your opinion is yours, and goodness knows you are welcome to it. That's America. I didn't see that. I didn't see him tiptoeing around anything. In fact, the day of the Dobbs decision, one of the most sternly worded statements came from the White House. And if you want to talk about dancing right up to to some certain things without crossing, that statement, I would have to Google it and try and find it at this point. But that statement danced right up to the edge of calling the Supreme Court corrupt and bought and paid for, which would be a hell of a thing for a president to have to say. He has said an awful lot of derogatory things about the Supreme Court, as he should, by the way, because he's right. And they are the Supreme Corporation, as you know, we call them that now, bought and owned. Period, end of story. No longer deciding cases by law, but creating law, working backward from, we know how we're going to decide this case. Now we have to search for some legal justification for that decision. Oh, and if we can't find any legal justification, we'll just make it up. The Dobbs decision was exactly that. It was made up out of whole cloth. The Chevron decision was not so much made up, but certainly a extremely strict interpretation of congressional power and congressional legislation. the affirmative action decision about using affirmative action for college admissions was kind of made up out of nowhere, stripping the idea that the president doesn't have the right to forgive student loan debt, although I don't know why we're forgiving, why students should have to apologize for trying to seek an education that we've been driving them into for generations. These things are made up. They have no basis in law. They don't have basis in law. Rather than the Supreme Court operating as the last and final arbiter of constitutionality, a power that it took upon itself, by the way, that is not outlined in the Constitution. Judicial review is not outlined in the Constitution. Jefferson, in some of his writings, was just astounded and absolutely torn apart that the Supreme Court took the power of judicial review upon itself. Having helped write the Constitution, he made it very clear in some of his letters back and forth with the other framers that this was a power he had never wanted or intended the Supreme Court to take on. But that said, the Supreme Court has now, instead of being the final, supposedly unbiased arbiter of the constitutionality of law and legislation, and hearing arguments from both sides about why it is or why it isn't, or why a certain law violates these different kinds of things or supports these different kinds of things, going into these oral arguments knowing the decision is already made, knowing that they've already decided. Alito already knew he was going to overturn Roe. Thomas already knew he would overturn Roe. I very much suspect that Thomas, Alito, Kavanaugh, and Roberts knew they were going to grant presidential immunity. They knew it. They knew it. They searched for a legal justification for it and never found it. So they simply made up law. So I didn't see the president's struggle with his faith over the issue of abortion. I believe, my belief, is that he looked at it from the way that I believe most Democrats should look at it. And the argument that we should make regarding female bodily autonomy, which, by the way, stretches to the rest of us. And oh, yeah, by the way, 56% of the population being women. That said, and I've talked about this in this program before, and I know not everybody agrees with me. If I was running for some major office, House of Representatives, Senate, whatever it might be, and somebody wanted to ask me about abortion, my answer would be the following. I wish no woman ever had to make such a choice. I wish no woman ever had to have an abortion. But here's what I think even above that. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of abortion. But here's what's the overriding principle even above that. Is that the government has no place whatsoever in telling a woman what to and not to do with her own body. It is anathema to the very founding principles of this country. If you're not hurting anybody else, if you're not breaking the law, if you think that this discussion is only about female bodily autonomy, I got news for you. You know, book burning started with one book. Remember Reverend Neumuller's, I think I was mispronounced that, Niemuller, I think is actually how you say it, the old poem. They came for the communists, and I wasn't a communist, so I did nothing. They came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't a trade unionist, so I did nothing. They came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew, so I did nothing. And then they came for me, and there was no one left. So if you think this debate is only about women's bodily autonomy, The other item that Randall mentions in his comments, she has made a break from Biden's two positions of supporting Israel's right to exist and having a ceasefire in Gaza. She has flat out called for a ceasefire. She has met with Palestinians that live here in this country. She has also met with the families of the hostages. And the Biden administration, by the way, has been calling for a two-state solution from its inception. I'm not sure if I'm just misunderstanding what you're writing here, or if I'm just not agreeing, or if I'm disagreeing with something completely different. I don't know. They've called for a two-state solution from the beginning. They've called for an end to hostilities from the beginning. The Biden administration has actually taken a position that we've talked about on this program, that Israel has every right in the world to exist, has every right to defend itself against attack. It does not have the right to commit genocide. No civilized nation, well, no one period should, but certainly not one of the so-called first world nations, which Israel is very firmly a part of. Israel has a right to exist, has a right to defend itself. It does not have a right to wipe out an entire population of people. It does not have the right to wipe out an entire nationality of people. And we as Americans, and here's where I think the Biden administration has been exceptionally consistent in its messaging and its policy positions. If Russia cannot wipe out an entire nationality of people, i.e. the Ukrainians, how can the Israelis wipe out Palestinians? Those two things would be inconsistent, and I don't think the Biden administration has been inconsistent on these two things. $540 million, awful lot of money, Jeremy, especially to raise in about 5 weeks. She is using, before that total was announced, I think it was actually announced during or immediately before the convention. They would be doing a $90 million ad buy throughout the battleground states. It would seem to me that this is the kind of Democratic campaign that we have always kind of wanted. We wanted a front foot, puff your chest out, stand up straight, and say, you're damn right I'm a Democrat. And I'm going to tell you what I believe in. And I'm going to tell you why you probably agree with me. It seems to be a bit of the tone of a campaign that we've always wanted.
You're right. And every time I open social media, I'll see an ad for, I'll see Kamala or I'll see Tim Walz on there asking for a grassroots nation. And the thing that amazes me about this money is all coming in $5 and $10 and $20 at a time. It's not coming from, I'm sure there are larger donors in there, but a lot of this money is coming from people like you and me that are, sending in a $5 check. And it's really proving that, I think it really resonates with people that they're not out here asking us to make some type of donation that we can't. But what they're saying is something I can get behind and I can give $5 or $10 to. And it goes to show you that there's a groundswell coming with it. And, I remember, and this is a little bit off topic, but I remember back when Obama was running for president and they kept getting the polling off. The polling was off and they nailed the polling down. And it started peeling the layers of the onion back. And they realized that a lot of the people that were voting were not answering their phones. It's just like, people with home phones versus people with cell phones. People are not answering calls that they don't know who they're coming from. Then we get to election night, and then we just get this groundswell of people that have come out and for the candidate and put Obama over the line. Hands down, put him over the line. And I think that we are seeing it, the money that they're raising, and I imagine those numbers are going to increase significantly in this week. Following last week's DNC. I think we're going to see quite a bit more money that's coming in, and I think it's coming at a time when Donald Trump is absolutely losing it, I've seen several clips of events that he's been to over the weekend, and I think that the money that they're taking in is going to be able to go toward a good solid ad campaign that's going to help push us over the line. I think we'll be able to keep our message consistent with the money that they're raising. I think this is going to help us just continue to bring on those volunteers and help us get out to these venues that we need to fill and fill in a big way and continue that support. So I think the money's coming in, but to your point, I think it's a great testament of this being an election that we really wanted to see and really what we would have loved to have seen all the time.
And the ground game, I think, too, opening of regional and field offices, being able to support volunteers with, you might not think it costs a heck of a lot of money. Office space costs money. Being able to provide your volunteers things like clipboards, pens, paper, water, snacks, a place to use a bathroom, things like that cost money. These are all part of campaigns. I think that money your get out the vote effort is going to have to be tremendous. Democrats always need a greater percentage, it seems, of our base than Republicans need of theirs. Remember the old tagline, of course, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. At the risk of going backward in the conversation, Jeremy, it would seem to me, Kristen and I have talked about this a couple different times, especially watching her speak and watching the real level of brilliance that this campaign is being run on. I mean, there hasn't been a misstep, not even one. You talk about how smoothly the convention went. I mean, I didn't even see one. There wasn't a video that failed to play. There wasn't a single speaker that tripped over the carpet on the way on the stage. There wasn't the microphone didn't cut out, like the lights didn't fit. Like they didn't even blow a light bulb. I mean, there was nothing seems to have gone wrong yet. And to the credit of the campaign saying, hey, it's not going to be this way the whole time. Something's going to go pear-shaped here. We're going to have a bad week. You're going to see a bad poll. Something's going to happen here. I think that level of realism is exceptionally refreshing. But also, as I said, Chris and I have talked about this a couple of times, that if this Kamala Harris, this 2024 Kamala Harris, was the 2019 and 2020 Kamala Harris, she might very well be running for a second term.
Yes.
And I think it's actually and this would be the part that, you can agree or disagree with that part as well, because it is purely speculative, but I think it's actually yet another kind of reinforcement of the Biden presidency, that if they have worked even half as closely as they tell us that they have, that he has helped make her this candidate. Would you agree with any of that? Disagree with it?
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that, to your point, I think if this Kamala Harris was the person running in the previous election, I think we would have had a very different outcome. I think that she was, I don't want to say inexperienced, because she has phenomenal experience going into this, but I think from the perspective of being experienced in what she was about to take on, I think the time that she's been able to spend with Joe Biden has helped mold her. I think he has probably been able to, just as any boss that we've ever worked for has been able to make or break us or mold us, is what they want. Sometimes we have great bosses that mold us to be, fantastic, people to pick up the torch and move on. And we've all worked for those people that didn't quite leave that impression on us. But I imagine that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have worked very closely on a lot of things. I was watching an interview, and I don't remember where I saw this, might have been MSNBC, but they were talking about how the vice president is often kind of in the background, and you never really hear anything out of them. I think about the time that Joe Biden was vice president under Barack Obama. There were a lot of things he did that nobody really knew about unless you read up on it and you studied on it and knew what he did. He did a lot of things with the veterans, especially, that he never got credit for. Sometimes the president will take that credit, and then sometimes it's just things that happen that feed into the administration, and nobody really knows who centered on it and worked on it. But I think he has turned a lot of things over to Kamala, and I think she's had the opportunity to gain more experience under his guidance on this. And I think this is partly why she was able to stand up and as they were kind of transitioning and give so much thanks and gratitude to him, because I think she realizes what he's done for her, and that maybe there was a time they didn't see eye to eye, maybe in the first run back in 2019, that they had a couple of quibbles there. But I do think that she is able to look back on it now and thank him for the time that he's mentored her. And I think that level of respect is carried over into this campaign, and I think it's really allowing her to be the president she can be. And I think maybe she wasn't quite there in 2019. They always say there's a time and place for everything, and maybe 2019 just was not her time and place. I really feel like we may have needed that steady hand of Joe Biden. That's just my 2 cents on it. But I think now we need that powerful person that is, youth minded and ready to run with it. And I think that she has what we need for that.
I think it's pretty interesting. The word that you used was mentorship. As a member of the Pennsylvania State Democratic Committee, one of the positions that I have advocated for, and something that I've advocated for that state party needs to do and does not do well enough, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that to take a cheap shot at anybody, it's my opinion. We don't mentor candidates, we don't train candidates, we don't make the truly good and decent people that run for office throughout this Commonwealth, and some of them in terribly, terribly red areas. We do nothing to make them better candidates. We don't make them better politicians. We don't make them better. We don't work on their presentation. We don't improve their speaking skills. We don't tell them how to dress. We don't tell them what sort of, I have a very itchy nose tonight. I'm going to get in a fight. Well, you don't. Nobody ever heard that old one? Get in a fight or kiss a fool?
I always heard it.
I'm the fool. Kristen's over there, but maybe I'm going to get in a fight later. But we don't take these truly, truly decent. There's such an art to being a candidate. There's such an art to it. You can be the most experienced person, but if you can't translate that experience, and if you can't march out on stage with a confidence and a calmness and that people can look at you and see in their minds, yeah, I could see that person in that. The average job resume gets 7 seconds for a review.
Sure.
Political candidates are really not that much different. Your first impression of them is exactly that. The old saying, it's so trite and kind of glib, but it's also true. You only get one chance to make a first impression. Yeah. The decision is made within people's mind kind of when they decide if they're willing to listen to you. Can I see this person in that office? And that's the first judgment. And we don't do enough of that. We certainly don't do it in Pennsylvania. And again, I don't say that lightly against any of my friends that are in the leadership of our party in this Commonwealth. We simply don't. We don't provide the training. The campaign committees who are responsible for electing Democrats to the State House and State Senate, they sure as hell don't do it. And we're not doing that. So and it's not easy, by the way, to mentor somebody when they have a job, right? I mean, he assigned very serious things to her to work on. But I think you really can see that growth. And another one of those terrible old sayings that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, she's not the same candidate that she was 4 years ago.
She's not.
She is not.
No. She's running a completely different race, and I think she is I think more grounded now. I think her head's in the right place. I think she understands how to hold her tongue, but yet have a powerful whip at the same time. And I think that she was maybe not that candidate in the previous election. Going back to what you were saying about mentorships and us training candidates, we joke about Biden being so old now, Trump is old too, and but we do have a lot of people in our party that are aging out, and I don't mean to say that in a negative way, but there's going to come a time, and it's sooner now than it ever has been, when Nancy Pelosi is no longer going to be in the House, when Chuck Schumer is no longer going to be in the Senate, and when people, I don't want to say age out because I think that's disrespectful, but as their time comes to step aside, I think now we have a lot of experience that is coming up on those ages where they'll be moving into retirement. And I think more than ever, they should really think about what they are going to do to leave their mark on the Democratic Party when they step aside. And I think now more than ever is the best time for them to start mentoring these candidates. We have Mayor Pete, who I think, I think he's got I think he has an absolute wonderful career ahead of him in the Democratic Party. I think there's so many others that I could sit here and name off the top of my head, but I would love to see them get the mentorship of some of these people that have been our leaders up until now, so that they can take that experience and then add what they bring to the table for the future and really see this party grow.
I don't think Pete Buttigieg is the same person he was 4 years ago either.
No,
I think
I agree.
An awful lot of time in that 2020 campaign trying to be all things to all people, and not trying to be stir up too much controversy of if I say this, I'll piss off that group, but if I say that, I'll piss off the other group. So I'll kind of talk out of both sides and not really say anything, and hopefully I won't piss off anybody. Dare I say, small c conservative Democrat, and conservative, I think more so far as maybe not fiscally conservative, certainly socially liberal, but I think more, when I say conservative, I think I'm more along the lines of close to the vest, a little safe maybe. Let's take, we could take bold action on this issue, or we could sort of take a few steps back and take a little incremental moves. And I think that's who he was 4 years ago. And now you see him, I honestly am kind of baffled and fascinated by this trend. He's become quite a favorite on Fox News. And will tell folks, whoever's interviewing him at the time, why did you come here? Why are you the one administration official who will come here? And him look dead in the camera and dead to whoever the host is at that time and say, because this is the only way I can get our message out, because you lie to everybody about what we do. So at least if they hear it from me, they're hearing it directly from the source, and I'm not going to lie to them. And he's not doing that 4 years ago. He just isn't. No. So I actually think it's quite remarkable. And you mentioned Speaker Emerita Pelosi. I have to say, I'll get into this, I think, more as we cross the top of the hour. And you tell me when you need to go, by the way, because I don't shut up. So you tell me when I do video. So you tell me when you need to go. If you want to go have dinner or something, just tell me. Was there in a week full of excellent speeches? I mean, genuinely excellent speeches. The context, the delivery, the style, the whole presentation of it. And we could run down that list. Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, if you want to talk about mentorship, he was whip under Pelosi. He was then majority leader under her, and the very next, in line. And he very openly says, she's still right here. If I need something, I know exactly where I can go. Yeah. But you see that since that transfer, if you will, that transfer of power, if you will, it's probably not the right way to say it, but since she took a step back and he elevated to the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, she was very visible with him for a good long time. He was at the mic, but she was right next to him. She's not there as much anymore. And she has stepped back a bit. And, you know, you really want to talk about mentorship. I mean, and his speech was just, yeah, it had a preachy, or that's not the right word. It had a pastoral essence to it. I mean, do you see the same thing I see, or am I kind of?
No, I agree with you. I felt the same way, and I felt that his message, I really felt like it was different to some of the other speakers that were up there. The tone of his message, I felt blown away by. I always feel blown away whenever I hear him talk, and I agree with you. I think he's had some wonderful, mentorship there in Nancy Pelosi. I think she's done a phenomenal job in helping to bring lots of new blood into the party and work with the people you have to help get them there. King Jeffries, I was kind of, there were a couple times in his speech I actually got chills a little bit, just because it goes back to, it kind of relates to being back home at church and you're getting that sermon on Sunday. It wasn't preachy to that extent, but there were times you almost felt like he was stepping on your toes, or maybe that what he was saying was directed at you. And I think he has the way of delivering that speech that not only makes it sound like he's talking to everybody else, but he can also make it feel like he's dialing into you when you need to hear what he needs to hear. So, yeah, he did. I thought he did a great job.
If there was one message, and I know that not everybody will agree, and God bless you, nobody has to agree with me. We're trying to stimulate debate, discussion, and thought here. I think if there was one message that was a little bit overshadowed this past week, it was the importance of the quote-unquote down ballot races. Mm-hmm. If Democrats had maintained control of the Senate throughout these last even 8 to 10 years, we don't have a corporate-owned Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. The only reason Republicans have the slim 4-vote majority that they have in the House right now from 2022 to now is because, 3 or 4 states did an off-constitutional redistricting. 10 districts across this country were drawn for Republicans. And gee, what a shock. The Republicans had a 10-vote majority. Wow, what a shocker. Mm-hmm. I do think the importance of these other elections was a bit lost. I don't remember anyone mentioning state legislatures, governorships, attorneys general, auditor generals, mayors, and county executives, and I realize that a lot of those races are what we call odd year elections. Your 23s and 25s and so on. But in different pockets of the country, all elections are even year elections. Mm-hmm. There are states that don't have elections in odd years. So mm-hmm. I do. If there was a message that was lost a tiny bit, it would seem to me that might have been the one. AOC talked about it. Hakeem Jeffries talked about it. Various senators talked about it. And it's very hard, by the way, I think, to put focus on some of that stuff when it's a presidential year, and especially when that presidential year happens to be as important as this one. We've talked on this program before. I think the question of this entire election is the point, the overriding point and theme and question in this election is, will November 5th be the end of yet another election cycle? Or will it be the last election cycle? Because you've heard Trump talk about suspending parts of the Constitution. If you just vote for me in this cycle, you'll never have to vote again. And I only want to be a dictator on day one, and we know all the quotes, and I don't want to give them too much extra press here. But would you agree with me, or do you think I'm wrong that if there was a message that was lost this past week, it was the importance of these House, Senate, state legislature, state row office elections as far as continuing our democracy throughout this country. Texas and Florida are not functioning democracies right now.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I was thinking this even myself prior to the DNC. I felt like this entire election cycle has been all about the presidency, and we've really taken a lot of. I know there's a lot of things going on grassroots. I know there's a lot of things that are happening at the local level, but you're not hearing a lot of national press over it. I remember leading up to 2016 and again in 2020, and then the off seasons as well. There was a lot of time focused on the local candidates and even with Senate and the House. But here in Georgia, I have heard very little national press. You know, we have Marjorie Taylor Greene up here that just won't go away, and I don't know if it's because they just feel like she's so well suited for her district that she's not going to go away. They don't spend the time on it. But even in ad dollars, you don't hear anything like I've heard in the past.
She is Georgia's favorite House member.
But
if, on some list, I'm not sure which list.
If you buy me a box of Malamars, I will make her go away. Guaranteed. Box of Malamars, putting my money where my mouth is.
Georgia's favorite House member.
There you go.
I'm sorry. No, please finish your thought.
No, I overall though I think that I agree with you. And I was even thinking about that before going into the DNC. I think there's been a lot of focus, especially with changing the course of everything just a few weeks ago. I think that has really eaten up all the face time of the local candidates. So I hope that we really dive in with that going into these last, what was it, like 70 days or so now of the election, and I hope we really start grabbing some of those local folks by the hand and putting them in the spotlight.
8:07. We have entered the final hour. Well, actually, we're 7 minutes into the final hour of the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 25th of August, 2024. Quick program note. It's our plan, depending on tech and hardware. This is really kind of I guess it's a hardware and software issue at this point, but regardless, our plan is to be with you for the remainder of the week for TKE tonight, Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. He quickly opens to get to the calendar. Oh, I'm right. We will not be with you next Sunday. It's Labor Day weekend. Enjoy the weekend. You don't need me blathering at you Sunday night before a holiday. All I would ask, as I do with all holidays, is remember what the holiday is actually about. Labor Day, to celebrate and highlight the contributions of the organized labor movement in the formation, growth, expansion of this country. Enjoy it. So we will not be with you on Sunday. A week from today is September 1st. We will not be with you on Sunday. It is our plan, hardware and software taken fully into account, for George and I to be with you Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Following us on GCPR, The Villain's View, with Thomas, Gambit, Gilbert, Gretchen. I'm not sure who else will be with him this week. I think I got everybody. You never know. Could be 4 of them. Could be 40 of them. They're all over the place. The Villain's View is that kind of like drop-in center, and it's one of the things I love about it. I've tried to make this program a bit of a drop-in center, but nobody wants to drop in and hang out with me except for Jeremy, who's sitting there thinking to himself, oh my God, when can I get out of this? But it's
not at all.
And George is just thinking, oh my God, shut up already. Poor George sits through this every night. But yes, The Villain's View comes up after us on GCPR Live at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on hot101.net. The music resumes, take a music shower after our heavy political commentary from 9 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow morning on GCPR.live, GCPR is Thomas McCormick with The Sound of Coffee. We return to you tomorrow evening from 8 p.m. We are live right now on my Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, and the 100 and something places where we've been shared. I just reminded myself that I actually have more places that I wanted to share before we go off the air. We are live on our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. That's always the best place to go. Easy for me to say, well, not so much. Best place to go if you ever miss any of our program, if you want to catch up on it, if you want to take a 3-hour program in smaller sections, if you miss any of our weeknight programs, everything is right there. That Other Side of Information on YouTube. We are live on Twitch. We are live on our LinkedIn. The audio going out through 2 internet radio giants, hot101.net. Our name is our web address, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app. Tell Alexa to play hot101.net. And of course, the aforementioned GCPR Live, and we are beyond humbled to make, I guess, what is sort of a debut on the Facebook page of America One Radio, of which Jeremy is the master owner, king, ruler, IT, treasurer, secretary, front door guard, elevator operator. He is everything at America One. So to all of you who do not know this space, do not know this program from the America One side of things, welcome and hello. It's good to meet all of you. We look forward to talking to you more in the future. And I invite you very much to come over to my Facebook, not to ignore America One, but I'll just, if you have comments or questions and you're watching live, I'll see them a heck of a lot quicker. If you want to come over to my Facebook, I will dive into my Facebook right now as Jeremy answers the next question and try to catch up on any comments from any other sources that I may have missed. Phone lines. Randall, I know, is itching to call the program. You are welcome to call the program. Do not do it yet, but sounds like a contest line, like I'm giving away concert tickets or something. Call us and be the 30th caller, but not yet. Wait till you listen and hear the sounder. Here's what's going to happen with the phones. It's not pretty, okay? It's not pretty and it's not perfect. You will call. I will hold the phone up to the mic. All 3 of us will hear you. You on the other end of the phone will only hear me. You will not hear Jeremy. You will not hear George, which means call, I answer, make your statement, make a point, ask a question, bang, that's it. Because if you want to hear us react to it, you need to go back to whatever device that you might be listening to us on. And that 10 to 17 second delay is a killer. It's confusing. It's confusing to listen to me or try to listen to me on the phone and then hear yourself come out of the radio. It's very confusing. We will open the phone line in a few minutes. I'm going to ask Jeremy a question. I'll open the phone lines, but just please keep in mind, it's not going to work smoothly. On a weeknight program, when it's just myself, we can do that. You won't hear Jeremy. You just won't, period. You're going to have to hang up and go back and listen. It's not ideal. And as I mentioned at the top of the program, George and I have spent more hours on this than should be needed to have been spent. We're still not quite there yet. We keep plugging away at it, but I will open the phone lines pretty soon. That said, Jeremy, as I do a little bit more sharing and we prepare to take phone calls, if you're willing to do so, let me just put a very open question out there. Your highlights from last week are what? Highlighted speakers, comments, zingers, whatever it might be. What sticks out to you? You think of the Democratic National Convention 2024 from last week, and some of the first things you think of are what?
Probably one of the things that stood out was Bill Clinton's the length of his speech. I love Bill Clinton. I always have. And like I said, he was the first Democratic president I voted for when I turned 18. But yeah, he's not changed. He's going to take his time to say what he has to say. couple of the speeches, I mean, of course, I can't say enough about the message Kamala Harris, put out. I think she really hit the nail on the head. It came to being able to introduce herself. I think she did a fantastic job with that. I think she did a great job in contrasting herself with Donald Trump. And then I think she wrapped it up amazingly, being able to really talk about what she wants to do in the future. I know she had a limited amount of time, but I think she did a great job in kicking off the announcement of what what her presidency really looks like and what she wants to focus on. So I can't think of anything bad at all. I would really critique her on there. Probably a few other things I'd like to see her drive home, but I think she still has plenty of time to do that. The other highlight of the speech, of course, I always get chills when Barack Obama's on stage and I'm listening to him, but I think Michelle Obama's speech really did it for me. If I had to pick between and former President Obama, I would take her speech hands down. I think she really, in a nutshell, wrapped up where, in the past, and I've seen these memes on social media where in the past she said, when they go low, we'll go high. And, she kind of just, as they say, took her earrings off, and she was ready to throw a couple of dignified punches in there. But I think she resonated with the people that Kamala Harris is reaching, and the people that she's going to want to grab that vote for. And I think Michelle Obama also spoke to a lot of undecided people. I could see her message resonating with some of those undecided voters out there as well. Of course, I think she fired up. When we start, and again, I was listening to this little snippet of this on another talk show. They were talking about how we often forget the Black woman vote out there. We're looking at who we're missing and who we're representing, and I don't think us as a nation understands the level of I guess the level of participation that we're missing out on if we do not reach out to that section of our population. And I think
considering that Black women have saved the Democratic Party, and by no small extension democracy itself, I don't think the Democrats take back Congress during the Trump regime without the voter turnout of Black women, period.
No, you're right. And I think that we always talk about the suburban women, but what we really need to be talking is about our Black women, our Black suburban women, because those people are entrenched in our communities, as much as anybody. And I think that is one segment of the population that we leave on the table. And I think Michelle Obama's speech really drove that point home and connected with a lot of people there. Some of the other highlights from the as we kind of move through it, I saw that. Oh my gosh, I'm totally going blank on her name. The senator that ran for president last year or the last term.
Cory Booker.
No, it's a female. The female
Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. I totally missed her name.
Was my choice. I wasn't a Biden supporter. I wasn't, and even though I hail from New Jersey and I'm a fan of Cory Booker, he promised he was going to come on this program. Told me to my face. Yes. Yeah. If you're listening, Senator, you told me you'd come on this program. Told me to my face at a Pennsylvania State Democratic Committee meeting. To my face that he would come here. That said, I was a Warren supporter. I thought she would. I think it is beyond time that a woman lead this nation. She has all the same progressive values and stances and energy as Bernie. She was younger. I thought she actually did a much better job of explaining those positions to folks
Yes.
than Bernie did, even though I think Bernie Sanders will go down in history as one of the most influential politicians in this country who never became president.
I agree.
You know, we now talk about Medicare for all as a right and as a quote unquote normal mainstream policy position, not one that was it was branded as radical, but is no longer considered that. The way he talked about the environment and green energy, continues to talk. I shouldn't say it like he's not hearing it. But I mean, he is running for re-election actually this cycle as well, and I suspect will be re-elected handily. You know, he made these things very mainstream.
Yes.
They were considered radical, lefty, you know, socialist type stuff, even though, by the way, folks, police departments, inherently socialist, libraries, roads. There's plenty of socialism going on in the country already, folks. Just, it's okay. And look, we're still here, and the sun will rise tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're still here. But yeah, Elizabeth Warren, anytime that she does a hit on any of the networks, I try to listen. I think her energy is amazing, and I think she does a very good job of explaining these things in ways that people can absorb. I've told the story before that when she was running for president, I think she mastered. I tell candidates that I'm honored enough to advise with, on, and for. If you need to learn how to talk to the public, go to YouTube or wherever you want to go and watch old clips of Senator Warren doing town halls during the 2020 election cycle. And she would walk in, start to give the bio, get to a certain point, and then go, you know what, enough. You don't want to hear about me. You came here to ask questions. So who's got a question?
Yeah.
And invariably, somebody would ask about the wealth tax, which again is one of those quote unquote far left ideas, which 57% of Republicans think is a good idea. And glad you asked about the wealth tax. It's a little complicated, but we'll get into it. We'll explain it. Who here, by the way, is worth more than $400 million? Anybody. And invariably no hand would go up. I did watch her once where a hand went up, and she said, well, you're going to pay. And the place went bonkers. She said, the rest of you are never going to pay a dime in wealth tax, but I'll explain it to you anyway. It's pretty simple. She mastered that, and I think she still continues to explain things to people in a way. I would ask you to comment on Secretary Clinton. I think the power of not running for anything can be very, very liberating, and I'm not certain that Secretary Clinton has ever given a better speech than what we heard at this convention. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll be honest. I did not get to see all of her speech. I've seen clips of it, but I did not get to watch that. I didn't get home in time the night that she was on to see that particular part of the speech. But I will say in the clips that I've seen, I was very moved by her presentation. I do. I know that she would rather have this had been a whole different set of circumstances, of her being on stage at this DNC. But I do feel that she was very positive in the comments that I did see. But I do feel that she got like a zinger in every now and then where she could dig a little bit deep. And again, I'm only basing that on clips that I've seen of her speech. I haven't seen the whole thing, which I do plan to go back and watch, but I've not seen the whole speech.
Commenter mentions Representative Crockett from Texas. You're not kidding. She's a rock star. She's a rising star. And we did see a lot of rising stars during this convention as well. You've heard me on this program talk about that we in this country do not only need campaign finance reform. We need campaign reform.
Yes.
Vice President Harris wins this election, and I'm growing increasingly confident that she will. By January of 2025, Republicans will start visiting Iowa and New Hampshire. That's just wrong. We need not be in a constant election cycle in this country. It leads to gridlock. It leads to further divisiveness. And the Supreme Corporation is responsible for this because running for president is now a money-making operation.
Yes.
When we have primaries where 20 plus people run for a nomination, and you just know that all but about 3 to 5 of them think they can actually win a nomination, they can all make money. And then they get to keep it. And both parties are responsible for it because they've both done it. They've both done it. In 2020, there were 24 Democrats at one point running for the presidential nomination. Debate nights took 3 nights.
I remember.
Did Seth Moulton honestly think he was ever going to be president? Honestly. If you gave him truth serum, would he really honestly tell you, I knew I was going to win that nomination. I was surprised I didn't. Really? Really? Honestly? And then on the Republican side too, Ben Carson, Herman Cain, they made money. And they made a lot of it. Before I ask you about anybody else, I'm sorry. I know where I was going. Future man who I really think is going to become president of this country at some point is Governor Westmore of Maryland. The man will be president of this country. I don't know when, but he will be. Sometimes you can just look at people. If anybody who watched then Senator Obama's speech in 2004, you knew you were looking at a future president. In fact, the very first pundit to comment on it was Chris Matthews, who was in the hall. And he got done, walked off the stage. They cut back to Chris Matthews. His very first thing out of his mouth was, "We just listened to the first black president of the United States." He was spot on. Whatever you might think of Chris Matthews, and there's certainly a divergent number of opinions about Chris Matthews, but he was spot. Sometimes you just know it. You can feel it. Westmore is going to be president of this country at some point. Folks, phone line. If you want to give it a shot, you can. I laid out the rules for you. Make a statement, ask a question, hang up. Because you'll hear me, you will not hear Jeremy, you will not hear George, unless you go back to the device that you may be listening to us on. It's a tech thing. You can't fix it. You don't know what else to say. And then on cue, gee, George, I wonder who this could be. I'm kidding, folks. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, my friend. You've been very patient. I appreciate it. Go on, then.
Yeah, I Jeff, number one, way back when you were making your comments on the two, in my opinion, the two things that separate Vice President Harris from President Biden. And my first comment was that I should have said, he was not as pro-woman's choice as President Biden, because President Biden had to walk at a tiptoe that line between his liberal tendencies and supporting across the board rights of people, whether you want to have an abortion or not have an abortion, whether you want to do birth control or not do birth control. He had to walk that line because he was a Catholic, and that was in opposition to his church. Now, for that reason, that was not one of the main issues he brought up when he was running for president. It was a sideline issue, whereas Kamala, that is the number one issue. And on the second thing I commented and you commented about, yes, I know Joe Biden was believes in a two-party state and Palestinian rights, but his emphasis has always been on protection of Israel first, release the hostages, and ceasefire. Whereas Kamala's is, yes, I support all those, absolutely, but she made it very clear in her speech on Thursday night that Palestinian rights of self-determination are just as important as Israel's right to exist. And so I wanted to clear that up.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, I agree with everything that's been said tonight.
Well, then there's something wrong with you. Nobody should ever agree with me 100% of the time. You need a drink. I'm kidding. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm not that smart. Nobody should ever agree with me 100% of the time. I'm not that smart.
Jeff, we've been friends for 4 years. You're state Democratic committee man. I've been local committee appointed, elected for 47 years now. Since, I got to vote at age 20 back under Cookie Dick's administration when that amendment was passed to lower the voting age from 21 to 18. So, yeah, we're brothers. But you made some really good points. Well, actually, both of you made some really good points of the highlights of the Democratic National Convention last week. And, yeah, there were many people that spoke that could be future presidents. Our governor,
Shapiro.
OAC. I'm getting down a list, but there were little things that stuck out on my mind from the convention. One of them was when it went up on the big screen, freedom is safe guns. And it started with a mother whose child was massacred at Sandy Hook.
Yep.
And it went down the line. And here is a young man now that survived his high school massacre in Florida, that has started his organization to fight for gun safety laws, to remove assault rifles from our society again. And if you look at statistics, from the time we signed a law by President Clinton until the Republicans under Bush Jr. said, nope, we're not going to renew that, the amount of fillings in this country used by semi-automatics, the amount of ownerships in this country used by semi-automatics went drastically down. And I can keep going, but you got your show. I want to thank you for coming on. I definitely watch American One.
You can talk to Jeremy. You're just not going to hear him talk back until after you hang up. I know I went through it. I just want to be clear about it. It's not ideal. Normally if you call on a weeknight, you and I can just talk together. Jeremy hears everything that you're saying. If you want him to respond to you, you have to hang up quick. But if you have a question or anything that you wanted to address to him, he can hear you.
Jeremy, first off, thank you for starting American One, number one. Thank you for being across the board every job to get it off the ground. I watch Tom Hartman every day. I really got turned on by Tom Hartman because of Jeff.
He is the master.
And
he's the master. He's great at what he does, man. He's so good. You can't watch that and not learn something. I mean, you got to be brain dead not to learn something. And I think he's very much the same way. I don't think it's about he's trying to make you agree with him or make you think in his way or tell you what to think about. It's simply trying to get you to think first, and then we can talk about these other things. And what sets him apart for me, not that you asked, and I don't mean to take over your phone call, but the history, the being so grounded in history that, you know, the very simple, for the relatively, I guess, speaking, simple fact that what faces the issues and problems that this country faces now have been solved before, and that we know how to do these things. We know what's wrong. We know how to fix them. And we know that the fixes have worked before. We simply need the political will and to end Citizens United in order to get most of them done. But I somewhat try to pattern my program after his, but at the same time, I have to be my own person. That's why I swear occasionally. Sometimes I get a little loud and get bang on the desk occasionally, but I mean, it's why we talk so much about history. It's why we talk not just about policy, but about principles. We don't just talk about ideas. We try to talk about ideals, and there's a difference. You know, and I don't sit here and try and tell everybody how to think. We have to think first. You know, we have to talk to each other. We have to debate each other. There's a section of this country that is not salvageable, unfortunately. There's 30 to 35% that are so diehard, they're unreachable. And by the way, they're willingly unreachable. They don't want to be reached. But everybody else, we've got to try. And yeah, I'm glad that you listen to Tom Hartman every day. You do the full 3 hours? I can't anymore. I'm at work. It sucks. I can't anymore. Do you do the whole 3 hours every day? Randall?
No, I don't do the whole 3 hours because I got so many things to watch and just so many hours to watch.
Well, you're so damn important, Randall. You don't have time.
So much time watching this and that. But anyway, there's one thing you didn't bring up tonight, Jeff.
Uh-oh.
That you brought up today.
Okay.
And that is, what are your personal experiences with friends, family, etc. as maggots?
Yeah.
And I've got one Facebook. You know, I'm like a lot of my friends that just block people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear the other side. I want to hear the madness. I got a friend I grew up with in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from a child on, that, you know, was really good friends with my two younger sisters, whose parents were Democratic Catholics. And she has gone so MAGA that it's really hard not to cut her off. It's really hard not to just laugh at her, at this insanity. I post something on my Facebook page and she comes in and does her madness. I leave it to my friends on Facebook to combat that with alternatives.
Right.
So I'm not going to cut people like that, but I know I have too many friends going back to childhood or high school that are absolutely brainwashed into the MAGA cult. And I actually think you said 35%. I actually think it's 40%.
Well, it's too damn many. If it's 1%, it's too damn many.
All right, listen, I'm going to let you go, and thank you.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Maybe that'll be a nice way to wrap up the program. We'll use our last few minutes on that. Thanks for reminding me of that, and I'll talk to you tomorrow night.
Same here, brother.
All right.
Thank you, Jeremy. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
At the risk of shortchanging the rest of the kind of analysis of the convention, which I do think is important, let me ask you about. I'm really glad he reminded me of that because I completely forgot about it. I mean, like really forgot about it. On Wednesday of last week, I just posted a little black sort of, white type black background sort of thing on Facebook that I find it. I'm sure I could find it if I wasn't so lazy. Because I'm getting tired now. It's almost 9. That I find it both fascinating and sad to watch a woman who I've been friends with since the 6th grade and watch her descent into right-wing radicalism. Sad because I know her and I care about her. And she's a good person. She's a good mom. She's a good partner. She's a good human being. Fascinating from the standpoint that if we take the emotion out of it, try and step back from it, this is my step back motion, that we look at it from more of a scholarly or sociological point of view, almost like an anthropological point of view, to watch this madness set in. And especially, I think now in 2024, where it does seem as if the cult is shrinking, not growing. And that after 10 years of this Trumpism and Trumpness, that someone would be newly entering it. And that the posts are now so much more angry, that they're so much more divisive, that they're so much more racist, that there's so much more anti fill in the blank of faith, because they're not just anti-Semitic or anti-Muslim anymore. Now they're just anti-everything because you're not my kind of Christian. I don't even know what that means. I guess that means corporate Christianity. Whenever anybody asks me about Christianity, I ask them which Jesus are they talking about, the one of the Bible or the corporate one. How have you seen, especially with what you do as the grand poobah of America One, this progressive blowtorch, if you will, this out there progressive voice, and you're very open about. You wouldn't have started a progressive radio station if you didn't agree with it. Let's just be blunt. If Formula One was the great overriding passion of your life, you would have started a show about Formula One. So that's. But I'm sure you know people because you do still hold down a full-time job in addition to America One. I'm sure you know people at work, or maybe at the coffee shop in the morning on your way to work, or when you fill up for gas or get your groceries or whatever it might be. And you see the same descent into madness. And you mentioned that you have family in Alabama, which, the Confederacy lives. I don't think I have to tell you that either.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with, or is there maybe one particular story of this cult membership, or where maybe somebody that you were close to that you've just watched move away, and again, maybe not just from how it hits you in the heart, but just from a kind of a scholarly point of view, just say, wow, I don't get that.
It's interesting, as I mentioned, my family, I come from a very conservative family to the point where I happened to be home, I guess it was around Easter time, and I went to church with my mom, and she was introducing me to a lady at church, telling her that I was her son. She's leading in going, he's a Democrat, like it's something to be ashamed of. And even I remember my dad calling me his son the damned old Democrat. But I was having a conversation with my mom, and she was spouting off some things about Trump, as I mentioned earlier. talking points that she's heard on Fox News and all the wonderful things he's done. He could have been a very successful businessman and could have lived, high on all of his money and his fortunes, but he gave it all up to, help us, is what she said. And, my mother is a very intelligent person. She, was very big on getting, unions established in places that she's worked. She was a driving force. She worked in manufacturing plants because that's really all they had to do there, back in the 70s and 80s in Alabama. And she was a driving force in getting the unions, helping get a union established in some of those places. But to hear how she has digressed, in terms of her way of thinking, we had a conversation, and I just shared with her. For example, she said, "Well, I'm not voting for Kamala, as she called her. She's not voting for Kamala because she's trying to take Christ out of Christmas." And she throws this at me as we're having lunch, and I said, "Wait a minute, back up and now explain to me what you're trying to say." Well, it turns out, she's been told that Kamala is driving force. If she becomes president, she's going to take Christ out of Christmas everywhere, and there's going to be no Santa Claus and no manger and no nothing.
Right.
And so I had to go back and remind her.
There's nothing corporations want to see more than the end of Christmas shopping and the billions of dollars that are spent. Nothing corporations want to see more than the end of that gravy train. No, that's yeah.
So we kind of we went back a little bit, and I said, she was telling me, well, our country was founded on Christianity, and I said, no. The country was
Treaty of Tripoli.
A bunch of people that wanted to get away from, the Church of England and be able to worship the way they wanted to. Not just Christianity, but, I said, Kamala is not trying to take Christ out of Christmas. Kamala is trying to allow everybody to, celebrate Christmas or whatever they celebrate, or not celebrate at all, but she's trying to keep them from telling you what you can celebrate. And so we went down, we had a long conversation around that. But I've several people in my life over the years that I see kind of slip into this. And, one notable example was this past week when the CDC had mentioned that the new COVID vaccine is coming out. Mm-hmm. And there's is supposed to stand up against the current the new variant that is out and is kind of supposed to be the big variant that's going to hit us this winter. And I
think it already is, actually.
It already hit.
Numbers are up across the board, across the country.
Yeah.
More so in red states, but numbers are up everywhere.
We saw somebody post, well, I didn't take the first vaccine, and I'm not going to go into taking the second vaccine. And this was coming from a guy who lost 4 family members to the first round of COVID because they wouldn't wear masks. Well, they were non-believers in masks. Again, I'm not saying the mask saved their life or didn't save their life, but because the government has suggested that, wearing a mask when in public and that we should try to distance ourselves from everybody just to put some space in between spreading, the virus and who's infected, they didn't want to be a part of that and ended up losing 4 family members, due to their own ignorance in not protecting them, doing what they can do to protect themselves. So, I see that a lot, and I try to point people in the right direction of, resources that they can trust, that they can get information from. I try to help set the course of, giving them the truth as I know it in a lot of these situations. I hope some of it will resonate. I hope it will, encourage the people to think and go out and do their own research. Most likely it's not, but at least it's my, at least I can go to bed at the end of the day saying, at least I tried to get the message out there, or at least try to enlighten them to a different way of thinking. So
we don't like that the government mandated that we wear a mask, but we would be thrilled if the government mandated that a woman must carry a child to term. That's okay. And I would say, and I don't say this in any way. I think you're smart enough to know where I'm coming from here when I say this. So I hope I get my language correct. I would say when you say that you would talk to your mom about her line of thinking, I would say it would be about a line of a lack of thinking, would it not? Would it not just be spewing what was told to you about
Yes.
you being told what to think, not how?
Hmm. Well, as I said, I had made a social media post a while back that in a lot of these very red states, all Trump has to do is stand up and mention God and the Bible and babies and abortions, and he has their vote. So I said rather than
Because who's more Christian than the guy with 5 kids with 3 different women, not counting all the ones that were aborted, because those of us who were in the New York market know there was quite a few of those as well. Nobody knows Christianity more than a man who,
exactly. Well, I asked a lady I was talking to when Trump did the photo op, in front of the church he was standing there holding the Bible and
upside down.
and, and I said, did that not come across as very fake, or was there not a lack of being genuine there? Like you didn't pick up on that? And this lady looked at me and said, "No, I thought that was one of the most precious things I could have ever seen." And I said, "You know what?
Okay, then have a great day."
As my grandmother would say, you have a blessed day."
You're right. Yeah, exactly. All right, then. You have okay, then. Very all right, then. We only have a few minutes left. About 8-9 minutes left in the program before we turn it over to the Villain's View on GCPR, and the music returns on hot101.net. George and I will be back with you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Jeremy, traditionally in this part of the program, we turn the floor over to you. Is there anything that we did not get to? I can't center myself in my square.
I'm trying to put my fingers together and I can't make it work.
Center myself on my freaking square. Is there anything that we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to bring up? Any answer that we didn't get to fully suss out? Maybe you were in the middle of a thought and I opened up my big trap and I blocked you. Is there anything like that? And tell people about America One. How do they listen? How do they find it? Just all that stuff. I want to turn the floor over to you.
Okay. I guess the biggest thing I'd like to say to anybody that's listening, and I know that the people that are listening are probably have very similar thoughts to us and have already decided who they're voting for in the November election. But I would say as Democrats, we have to get behind to what Jeff mentioned earlier, and that's our down ballot, people that are running for office. It's not just about who's in the presidency. There's a lot of other key players that are up for election, and us sitting, if we go in there and pull the lever and vote for the president, and we fail to look at all of our local representatives down the list, we're no better off, because our president's only as good as the power and the people that we give them to work with. And if we put Kamala Harris in office, who I think is going to be a fantastic president, first female president of the United States, first Black female president of the United States. If we're going to give her that title, we need to give her the support she needs to get the job done, and that goes all the way down to the lowest ranking people, which are some of our most crucial people on the ticket. So just be mindful of that. Any way you can get out and support people. I know it kind of goes to what we all believe in, the grassroots stuff that we do, but let's get out there and tell others who might not be as privy to what needs to happen as we are, and let's spread that word so we can really make this happen. I think that we have to win November. It has to be so plain and clear, the message that we're sending, that there's no room to dispute, and we're not going to get there unless everybody gets out there and vote. It's been said before, but Hillary Clinton would have been our president if there had been no naysayers that sat at home and said, I'm going to sit this one out because I don't love her.
If there had been no electoral college.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only way we're going to get there is to get all these seats blue all the way down the ticket. So that's what I'd say about that, and just a message I would drive home tonight. But a little, as far as America One Radio, we would love to have each and every one of you come over and listen to us online. We do have an app. So you can download the America One app on Android or at Apple, or you can visit our website, americaoneradio.com. We'd love to have you on there. We'll try and grow this, and this is a grassroots effort. There's no corporate money coming in. In fact, there's not a ton of money coming in at all. It's just people wanting to get the right message out there and share our message with the message of the Democratic Party and the progressives with everybody that needs an alternate way of listening rather than all the right-wing media that's spewed at them every day. So AmericaOneRadio.com, we have our app. You can also tell Alexa to play America One Radio, and you can listen to us that way. We're on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram. We also have a Twitter account. We're not as active on X as we are on Facebook and Instagram, but we're happy to have you any way we are, and share us with everybody else. We are based here in Atlanta. We do have a lot of coverage of Atlanta politics, but as we know, Atlanta's going to be a swing state this year. So we have Ron Roberts with the Ron Show that's on every morning at 8 p.m., catching you up on what's going on locally. So he would love to have you listen in and share with us your thoughts, and share us with your friends as well. I think I lost the audio.
I think you're muted there.
There we go.
You're still muted, Jeff. You're muted. You have to unmute.
Oh yeah, I see.
How did I do that? Anybody want to watch me smash a computer on live radio? Because I'm going to. Anybody want to see me throw a 50-pound iMac? I'd probably I don't think I'd make it over the edge of the table, to be honest with you, before I collapsed in pain and threw another disc and all of that. But anyway, we got about 2 minutes left of the program. Let's wrap up. For George and I will plan. I always say plan, because they never know what's going to happen. Whether there's a health situation here, I have to work late, stuck in traffic, or any of that kind of thing. We will plan to be with you every weeknight, Monday through Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 8 p.m. With TKE tonight, we take a story or two, big stories of the day, and talk about it with you. Not at you, but with you. And we will not be with you again for a 3-hour program next Sunday. It's Labor Day weekend. Remember what Labor Day is for. Don't let anybody tell you any different. The labor movement in this country helped give you your weekends and your holidays and the minimum wage and a 40-hour work week and all that stuff, and all the stuff that you probably know. But sometimes we too tend to think of these days as, what a great day for a picnic or take a swim. And you know what it is? It is. Let's also not forget what the day is actually for. So we won't be with you next week, which means for our Sunday audience, we'll return to you on September 8th. The 8th of September for our Sunday audience. We'll see you tomorrow evening for our weeknight audience. For everybody that surrounds GCPR.live, that's Thomas and Gilbert and Gambit and Gretchen and Lisa and Pastor Best and Bob Kosh and Brett and Ben and T. Nathan, and I don't think I'm forgetting anybody, and they will yell at me if I did, but I don't think I am. For everybody, to our new friends and family at America One, if you're just checking us out, Kennedy Effect for the first time on America One, I hope that you'll continue to check us out. I hope you'll continue to give us a chance. We hope you enjoyed it. And hey, if you didn't and you checked us out anyway and decided, not for me, that's okay. That's fair. I'm good with that. Just thanks for giving us a try. And we hope that you'll continue to come back. And we hope to continue to appear with you and on America One as we go forward. For everybody surrounding the Kennedy Effect, that's George and Lynn, Kristen and Daisy the dog, and of course April Riddick downstairs. I'm Jeff Kennedy. We've done about all the damage we can do for one night. We'll see you tomorrow night from 8 p.m. The Villain's View on GCPR comes up right now. The music returns on Hot 101. Everybody have a great week. We look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and each